Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of an Unexpected Podcast. And today we have one of the Canadian SBG players, Justin Bertrand, and we have Mick from London, both attending with me today. We're actually going to be going over the Canadian Open for Articon. So for those of you who don't know, Articon, which is pretty much the world championships of our game of SBG, hosts a lot of open events, or I guess not hosts, but sponsors, supports a lot of open events where you can get a free ticket to Articon in the Masters event, and if you win at that event. And so we have the Nova Open, which is the one for America, and there's ones in 15 other countries, I'd say, and Canada has theirs. So that's the one that just happened. We're going to be going over the top 10 lists of who won. We're going to be talking about the meta. And Justin, were you the host of the Canadian Open?
Yeah, I was one of the three TOs, and I was the main ref for the top tables.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So you had a bird's eye view of pretty much every single army that was there.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So this is going to be good. So, and how many players kind of attended this sort of event?
So by open events, it's probably on the smaller side, but for Canadian standards, we're happy. We had 16 players.
Nice. 16. All right.
16. Yeah. So like I said, definitely I don't know if it's officially the smallest open event, but it's probably somewhere around there.
Now, just for clarification, we talk about 16 players, but the Canadian meta is by no means like inexperienced. There's actually a lot of larger tournaments in the area. In fact, you guys host a lot of tournaments, almost one a month, two a month. Just kind of in the general of the East Side Canada.
Yeah, so like the OSBGL. Yeah, so the OSBGL, we tend to have 1 to 2 events a month. And really just the reason why we had 16 players as opposed to others is just we were with a convention, the Canadian Tabletop Gaming Convention, and they decided to put the convention on Mother's Day. So we lost a few players to that, and by few, probably there were 10 players that told us that we wanted to come, but we couldn't because we have to go see mom. So just, and a couple other factors, and also geography is a Canadian issue, which is probably similar to the States, where a bunch of the guys coming from Toronto down to Ottawa, it's a 5 to 6 hour drive. So it's logistics.
That's like the other side of England.
Yeah,
exactly.
Pretty much.
In fact, yesterday I attended a small event and I had to drive for an hour. I was like, wow, it's just so long.
I have to drive an hour to go to the nearest chain coffee shop, like McDonald's type of thing.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal in Canada. You guys' stuff is spaced out insanely by large distances.
Exactly.
So, all right. So then there's some context for everybody who doesn't know the Canadian meta. There's actually a lot of strong players in Canada. And so they are by no means just simply figuring out how to build lists of any sense.
Definitely not. No.
So we're going to be going over the top 10 lists, and this is going to just pretty much, we're going to kind of talk about the list. We do normally do a list review. We're going to skip that for this since we're going over 10 lists. So let's go ahead and pull up, I guess, unless you feel there's any more important information about the event itself.
I guess the only other thing to add, it was a 2-day event, 5 rounds, 800 points, and we did 2.5 hours per round.
Okay. All right. So a pretty standard build sort of tournament. No special rules, no gimmicks of any sort. Okay.
No, exactly.
Terrain being kind of like pretty generic standard, not sort of Nova, but more like Articon.
No, we're working more towards from a Nova type style. Not quite there yet, but we did have an Orthang Tower type of thing that's almost true scale. But terrain is definitely very thematic. We do make sure that in our league events we have minimum 25 to 30% coverage on a board.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
For terrain. So kind of almost think match play guide standard almost as much as possible.
Okay. All right. No, then perfect. All right. So this is pretty much an event that most players are going to be familiar with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to pull up some of these lists. And they seem to be in no particular order, at least the way they were arranged to me. So you have to correct me, Justin, if I have them wrong. But I'm going to go ahead and pull them up here. And some of them, just for our viewers on YouTube, you'll notice they're in French. So Justin will be translating the list. I'll just put it up on screen anyway. And I guess our French speakers, viewers will be able to read along. So going into that, let me go ahead and first share the screen. And we will go into list number 1, at least that I have. So what list is this?
So that is Antoine. That is our first place winner. So he got the ticket to Articon.
Okay.
And he's planning on going. He's really excited.
Okay, awesome. So Antoine is going to be participating in the Masters event. That is where the top players from all these different opens all compete, and they go for sort of the Masters title. And it's actually pretty grueling tournament. Basically, every match is a hard match. So, all right, let's go into it, though. What did he bring to this tournament? I can't read this one. This one's in French. Justin, go ahead and
surely, Devin, Theoden.
I think it's Mordor. I just
So this is a Riders of Theoden Legendary Legion at 800 points. So he's got Theoden, all the bells and whistles, as we say, with 6 Royal Guard, with Throwing Spear on horse. That's his first warband. His second warband is Darewine with 3 Riders of Rohan. His third warband is Gambling with Royal Standard and horse and 4 Riders of Rohan. And then his fourth warband is Elfhelm with 9 Riders of Rohan with Throwing Spear. And then he has Durnhelm just on his own at 80 points in 5th warband.
All right. So immediately, many Riders of Theoden Legion players may notice a huge difference with this list versus the typical build of Riders of Theoden. And that's that this guy has troops at all.
He didn't go mass Royal Guard with Throwing Spears.
And well, I don't know about Royal Guard, but maybe Mick. I don't know if they do this over in Europe, but the standard build for Riders of Theoden is actually just all heroes.
Yeah. So I've seen various versions, but the all hero one has been popular in the past. Thanks
the nerf
to
of Gambling probably brought that down a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. But like thanks to a special rule where all of your heroes get to call a free heroic combat for 1 turn when Theoden calls his to death. So
heroic combat or heroic strike,
heroic combat or heroic strike. Yeah, that's right. So well, this list actually really fills me with joy because currently I'm building a Riders of Rohan list, and yesterday I was playing an event where I faced a Theoden's Legendary Legion which had Royal Guard. My own personal one doesn't have any Royal Guards, just Riders, and so seeing that this with just Riders won the Canadian main event, that's actually really cool.
So what's your reason for wanting Riders? And maybe this goes into this list here, but what's your reason for wanting Riders over the Royal Guard?
Well, the first reason is if you're not thinking just competitively, obviously accessibility wise, you can have plenty of Riders of Rohan for much smaller price than Royal Guards. But if that's not the issue, so if you're just trying to build as best as possible, I think a few Royal Guards might be useful, but I think the main strength of this of mounted Rohan lists tends to be just the sheer amount of bows you get. So here he's got 5 heroes and 23 bows. 23 riders. So that gives him 23 bows. So you're able to just run around, maneuver, heroic march again, shoot, heroic march, shoot. Just kind of like spread yourself all over, and like play this sort of game where you're just trying to pick off a model there, 2 models there, 3 models there, and then eventually charge in. So yeah, I really like this list personally.
Yeah, and I can confirm to the point. So Antoine is from the French Canadian / Quebec Middle Earth League, of which I'm an admin for that league as well, and he's a new player. By new, I mean like under 5 years of playing.
Oh, okay. So not a novice, but
not an entirely new player.
Yeah.
Not entirely new, but he's been playing with us for I think maybe 2.5 years now.
Which I guess if we count the pandemic, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, exactly. I believe the main reason why there's not more Royal Guard is precisely due to cost and budget and that sort of thing. Kind of new hobbyist kind of stuff.
So then I guess even in that sense, then just being limited to riders, still it worked.
Yeah,
and just make that pull off. So
yeah, I mean it's a perfectly reasonable list to have just riders, I think.
Well, especially in the second last round, he ended up playing our fourth position, which is Napo. We'll get to him later, which is basically Pits of Dal Guldur Legendary Legion, and he just sat there and shot him to bits with 16 or whatever it is bows. It worked great, and then he just charged in on two fronts, and he was able to use his death to just like clean everything up and no problem at all.
See, that's the thing is like he has some at least 5 heroes here. So Elfhelm, Durnhelm, Gamling, Darewine,
yep.
Theoden. So he's got wow, that's shocking. He doesn't have Aomer.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah. So okay, so then let's go into that a little bit. I mean, as far as the hero selection, because it's going to be huge when we're talking about the Riders of Theoden Legion. Darewine, okay, I can make sense of that. The hero combats and that kind of shenanigan. I think maybe Elfhelm was there to save points because Aomer's 100 and something?
He's like 130 when he's fully kitted up.
So
yeah, he's 130 when he's got armored horse.
Yeah.
I think we're 125.
Then maybe to grab him, I forgot how much Elfhelm is. How much is Elfhelm?
He's 75.
It's like 75, yeah.
Okay, so it's like a 50-point difference. That's a lot of riders that you'd have to drop just to grab him.
And Elfhelm has heroic defense, which tends to be the hero he'll chuck into like the big nasty Boromirs and such, and he'll use the throwing spear to take out the horse, and then he'll just heroic defense and stall him while the rest of the army does something. That tends to be Elfhelm's specific role in that version of the list.
Right. I think Gamling also has heroic defense. So if you really wanted to stall somebody and you didn't care about your Gamling, you can do that.
Well, Gamling's always frightening too. Using Gamling as doorstop is kind of tough.
if it's a difference between a winner or loss, then
yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
So all right. Then the choices here, I suppose, make a lot of sense. I mean, because really, it almost sounds like you're gonna have to drop Durnhelm, which I wouldn't do. So yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, it's just hard selection of heroes. Really, you'd have to drop the cav, like all the troops, which
but then you end up with like 22, 23 models. Like that's really low at 800 points. Yeah, I mean, like one good charge with Theoden special rule, and you've killed like 15 models if all goes well.
Exactly.
Right. Well, unless you guys have anything more to say regarding this list, I guess we can move to the next one. So there's nothing. Well, actually, there's nothing you guys would change. That it sounds like you looking at it, Mick. I mean, you're thinking about Theoden, and it sounds like Justin, you've had some experience with this list. Me personally, I only play the all hero variant of this, so I guess within the context of what he's done, I'm not mad at it. There's nothing wrong with the list.
No, I think it's perfectly fine. Like if anything, maybe just moving some riders around the warbands, but depends. I mean, it's more of a personal preference. If you want Durnhelm to be a single drop, or to have some riders around, or to have the airline to be a single drop, like.
Yeah, that's the same. Like I might have given Durnhelm a few riders there from Elfhelm's unit, but other than that, I mean, I'm pretty much predominantly an all cav list player myself. That's kind of any of my competitive attempts at podiums are all with Aomer's riders. So I'm very happy with this because he's got enough might to make it work without, even if the death flops, he's got enough might to make an all cav army work.
And he does. Yeah, absolutely does. So, all right, let's jump to the next list. So, with the next one in mind, pulling it up here.
Should be Cassandra would be second place.
I got it. Cassandra. Sauron.
There we go.
Is this all right, it's French. All right, go ahead. This is what list do we got here, Justin?
The Sorcerer of Angmar, so that's probably the Witch King, no?
Yes, that's the Witch King. So this is this is basically a Mordor kind of mix here. So we've got the Witch King on horse with crown. we've got. I'm just trying to see which ones. Yeah, okay. So she's got in the Witch King's Warband, she's got 5 Black Numenorians and 5 Morannon Orcs with Spear and Shield. Her second Warband, she's got the Undying on horse with 6 Morgul Knights. And then in the third Warband, she's got Shagrat, the Kurathungol, like the fancy, the beefed up one.
Yep.
With 4 Black Numenorians, 4 Morannon Orcs with Spear and Shield. And I believe one of those has a banner. Yeah, one with banner. And then 1 Morannon Orc with Spear. And then her 4th warband is Kardush with 7 trackers.
Okay, so a couple things stands out. One, a lot more cav than typical.
Especially Morgul Knights.
Yeah, that's almost where I would say there's a point sink. I mean, did the performance of this player, I mean, I don't know, from Justin, from you watching the games, did those Knights seem to come in handy for them?
They did a lot of the work because they were the way she kind of plays her tactics is she kind of does the kind of hammer and anvil type style where she'll just roll right up to you with all these orcs, and then all of a sudden you're getting flanked by a ring wraith which can immobilize the big strong threat and then just surround it with Morgul Knights and flash kill it, and then just keep moving on. And yeah, it was quite interesting. I wasn't expecting this list to perform as well, but Cassandra has been practicing with this version of the list and kind of fine-tuning and tweaking it at like our weekly hobby games for the past solid 2-3 months, easy. So she's definitely had a lot of practice with it, and I think that came to her advantage. But yeah, I think what happened is a lot of her opponents underestimated the Morgul Knights with the Undying and that kind of combo there that she kind of just would sneak out from under you.
This is actually a fairly surprising. At 800 points, 36 models, and half of your models have defense 5 or less. I mean, you have a defense 6 front line, which is of course the anvil. Which
no. Like they're Morannon orcs. They're not basic orcs. So
they're all Morannons. Yes, they are. Yeah. Okay.
So pretty much your whole army is defense 6.
Defense 6. No, that's solid.
Except the 7 trackers.
Yeah, no, then that's solid. Yeah. So the trackers are really bringing up numbers and of course sacrificial lambs, but while providing some shooting. But okay, so then you have 2 hard hitters. The Witch King does have the crown.
Yep.
Does it show the stats? I don't see numbers, but like, is it a 310 something or?
Based on the fact that it's a 235 point warband with only 5 orcs and 5 Numenorians, I'm pretty sure she had it all. She had the Witch King almost full.
Okay.
I know for sure she had 3 might and 3 fate. I just can't remember how much.
We'll assume at least 15. Probably
about 15.
Yeah.
Probably a healthy amount. So okay, then so basically 2 combat heroes. Then I'm actually glad to see the Undying here. The Undying is one that like just fell out of favor completely with the new edition, and I'm trying to speculate on why, because I actually think he's still a solid model. I mean, Mick, do you have any thoughts? Because I know you used to play the Undying a lot.
Yeah, in the previous editions, years and years ago. Yeah, no, in the current version, like this reminds me a little bit of what David Farmer used at the GBHL Masters weekend or 2 weekends ago, where his second warband was actually the Shadow Lord, not the Undying. First warband was the Witch King, and then there was still a done over Shagrat, but in a sense, sort of the same idea of like solid front line and some support and double custer.
So I imagine in this list, the big argument would be, should the Undying go away? I imagine none of us are disagreeing necessarily about what Shagrat's role is here. A defense 6 core at 36 models is healthy. Though we have to acknowledge 7 of them, of course, are trackers. So there's actually a probably rather small front line. Hero shutdown capability very high, but you could do that with any ring wraith besides the Undying. I guess the big arguments against the Undying is the fact that his secondary ability is basically useless. And So, and when I say secondary, I mean the one where he like gains will whenever someone else casts, because now he has to spend will to do it, which means you need at least 3 casters around him.
But so that's exactly what the trick is, because she puts him close to Kardush.
There is a third caster. Okay.
Yeah, so Kardush uses the orcs to get his D3 will, but then whenever Kardush was in certain inches of a ring wraith, what is it? This he can allow a single friendly ring wraith model within 6 inches to immediately regain D6 will. So she rebumps up the Undying with will whenever she needs to.
Well, I was referring more to her, the Undying's ability that comes naturally with him, where like every time he can spend a point of will, and then casters within 6 of him, if they successfully cast, I believe, then generate another will for the Undying.
Exactly.
Which generally is a useless ability unless you have exactly 3 casters in the list, which in this case she happens to have.
Yeah.
So okay, then, and of course, yes, absolutely. I imagine though, if Kardush is going to sacrifice himself, unless the Undying is just pumping enormous amounts of will into spell casting, I'd imagine the boost in will would be going toward the Witch King.
I think she used both. It would depend on the situation, but I know there was one game where she used it to boost the Undying. She basically turned the Undying into this tank that would just stalled for ages. Because at 18 will that can be used as fate points, that thing's not dying anytime soon.
Yep.
Right.
And it's basically heroic defense, but within more.
Exactly. So I think that's where that tactic came in handy, because I think there was one game where she was facing I can't remember if it was Ben or if it was, but like sort of more top tier hero type scenario, and that's what she was doing. She was using the Undying to just stall while the Witch King and the rest of the army kind of eating away at the actual like troops.
Okay, then you know what? For that reason, I really am glad she actually pulled this off, because I want to test the Undying in future games. So I think that's excellent. So we lost Mick for a moment here, but we're going to go ahead and press on and assume he's going to just rejoin this chat. So unless, did you have anything else to say about that list in particular?
I think that's pretty much everything. Yeah.
Okay. Then I'm, the Black Numenorians, I'll go ahead and just accept that was the powerhouse of the list, but that is very, very surprising. So, all right. So next one we have Ronan.
You can read this one now.
I can read this one. Let me go. So this one is a Mirkwood list. Seems to be having an alliance here. So Thranduil, it's going to basically be a kitted out Thranduil and elk. And so usually I often find that when they bring elks, they intend to keep them on mounted for a while. But other than that, 4 Mirkwood elves with shield, 2 Palace Guard with shield, 3 Palace Guard with spear and shield, 4 Mirkwood elves with glaives and elven bows, 1 Mirkwood elf with a glaive, shield, and banner. So they have a banner around here. Legolas is the second warband, bringing in 4, 4, and 4 as far as elves with shields, elves with glaives and shields, and elves with glaive and bow. And then we have Gandalf the Grey on horse from a Survivors of Lake Town, making a Green Alliance. So immediately looking at this list, this is actually a pretty hero-heavy Thranduil list. We don't have the exact count on screen of how many models, but given my count,
29.
Like 29. So
29, yeah.
This is actually a very small amount considering it's elves, but Gandalf is going to have to put in a lot of work, and so is Thranduil. Migo, I've never seen Gandalf played with Thranduil.
I mean, it's quite fun.
That's quite strange. Yeah, why?
So, Justin, why do you say it's fun?
It's. I'm trying to think of the correct terminology here, but basically, what happens is, Gandalf is able to make sure that Thranduil uses his resources at the right time. So Thranduil is able to rely more on his higher fight value and doesn't have to worry about striking against another top tier hero, like say a Boromir or an Aragorn, if Gandalf is constantly there threatening with an immobilize. So it means that what I was seeing with runs that Thranduil's might, he still have a might towards the end of the game, or 2 might towards the end of the game when he needed to really just mow through things because Gandalf is just there, just kind of like making sure he doesn't need to use as many resources.
Did he ever struggle? And I know you can't be there for every game they play or every play, but do you think they ever struggle with like being overwhelmed by enemy heroes? Because the troops can't hold up long against 3 opposing threats, right? 3 opposing hero threats. Gandalf shuts one down, sure, but the other 2 heroes, if they get out of control, which normally Legolas is in the back, but I assume in this case he's definitely kept him in the front. Well, not on horse. I'm shocked by that. All right.
Yeah, so Legolas is probably there just for horses and mounts and other things like that.
Yeah. I mean,
and Legolas does some of the fighting as well. He kind of goes into the troops and like holds one flank.
Yeah. I mean, in this one, I mean, if you have 3 opposing heroes, which generally at 800 points you're going to have, then the heroes will devour this list pretty fast if like Thranduil isn't on doing his best work. And so Gandalf holds one off theoretically. So Legolas got to be in combat. I mean, otherwise you're just going to fall apart. This is what I would call a list that has a high skill ceiling. Like you definitely need to know what you're doing. Luckily, elves don't lose fights as often. And he's got them all shields, so you could shield a while Thranduil does his work. I mean, Nick, what are you thinking about this one?
Well? Yeah, no. Well, I'm just thinking that there's only 11 shots at 800 points, and even though he's got Gandalf, that's not very much. So, like, if you were to run into any of the more shooting armies, like this force then ends up having to move forward, and like with so few troops, like if you're being outshot by anything, then you have to abandon your own shooting. You're losing more troops, and then I feel like you're just gonna get overwhelmed very easily. So even though I do like the idea of Thranduil and Gandalf, like it's just not something I would necessarily be going for.
The one thing that surprised me about this was actually how durable the warriors were, because the warriors that are around 3 inches of Thranduil, they're killing things like left, right, and center. So what Ronan was typically doing is he just put himself into a box where all of his auras and all of Gandalf's sword and everything are kind of protecting the troops, like Aura of Dismay, that sort of thing. So there's a bit of a defense there. And then he just rely on the warriors +1 to kill to make a hole, and then he'd open that up and then just charge Thranduil straight into that pretty much.
Well, that makes sense, but that's only reliable in scenarios where you are able to just bubble up. So like there's many armies in the game where they excel in bubbling.
Yeah.
But once you stop being bubbled, then each one has to function by itself. And I just don't feel like there's enough here to actually spread out for like, especially for Maelstrom games or any like objective missions.
So, Justin, what were the scenarios that?
So the scenarios were all veto system.
Okay.
So he could veto out the scenarios that would disfavor.
Okay.
Yeah, and so basically the system that we use for veto on in the Quebec League, the Ontario League, there's a couple different versions of it going around, but is we basically roll pre-tournament all the sets of 3, like individually.
Yeah. Right? It's the American veto system as well. I don't know if we
cool
from you guys.
Because I know I've heard different versions of the veto system, so I'm not sure which one we do. I just know that's the one that we do in the Quebec League. So all obviously with 5 rounds, you got 15 out of your 18 scenarios.
Yeah.
The scenarios that did not get into any of the pools is Lords of Battle, To the Death, and I'm trying to remember the last one that didn't get pulled. It was another one in the 6th pool.
Contest of Champions.
I think there was Contest of Champions, but then there was another one that's similar to that. Ilmet or Clash by Moonlight or Ilmet by Moonlight.
Literally every single one of those scenarios, this player would have wanted. So
yeah,
I don't think.
So every other scenario was on the table.
They were off the table.
Yeah.
So all right, then using the veto system. Oftentimes, for those who don't know what the way it's played, and maybe you guys played it this way, is like you select a pool, like pool 2, and then you can veto out 2 of the scenarios out of that pool and then play the last one that wasn't vetoed amongst 2 players. So if you get the pool where like you have to spread out, which is, I believe, domination, capture and control, and breakthrough,
right? Yeah.
Then they'll probably play either they might think on the lines of you could suicide and win through suiciding by, playing the scenario that ends at 25%, which I believe is domination.
25% is breakthrough.
Well, it's also domination, I believe. I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah, and then one of them also
capture and control is a 50%.
Yeah,
so
I'm
the
checking
ending
the rule
condition
book here.
becomes important because you could play capture and control. You can grab objectives and then leave, which allows a smaller army like this to remain maneuverable and remain together. But generally, they get outclassed by an outnumbering horde that can just send one guy to go and grab it back. So, I'd imagine. I don't know how. It's, of course, you got to know the context of the terrain, what the player played against, but this definitely is a bubble army for sure. So in a straight up fight, which was all the scenarios that were named that were deleted out of it, this definitely can work. It just definitely requires a high skill cap. I would say that any player looking at this list and says, oh, this would be interesting to play, you definitely got to be good at what you're doing, because if you misuse Thranduil in any way, it's going to hurt. So.
And let's be honest here, Ronan is one of the top players in the OSBGL right now, so he definitely has more than enough skill to he can make anything work if he wanted to, honestly.
Yeah, I certainly was not surprised to see his name on this list.
Exactly, yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, exactly that. So I mean, I have no doubt that him as a player figured this one out, and certainly you're going to see that. Sometimes you'll see lists at the top tables where like it's being piloted by like a Jay Clare or something like that. It's just like, okay, like like after Jay won the Dunlendings, and it's like, well, I mean, they're not a bad force, but a lot of other people couldn't replicate the results. So I imagine this list is going to be in the similar vein. So
and that's kind of I'll take a couple seconds here just to talk about Canadian meta, because I think this is a very good example of that. To my experience right now in both the Ontario OSBGL League and the Quebec League. So Quebec League, we're in our first year of running an official league with tournaments and events every month and standings and everything. Then obviously the OSBGL, we're hitting our 10-year anniversary this coming fall. But what we noticed at events recently is that there's a very high percentage of new players. So in the Quebec League, it's pretty much all new players. And by new players, I mean like 3 years of playing or less. Right. Most of them are at their, first kind of 4 or 5 events. And then you have someone like me who's been playing since 2013, and so there's a couple of us veterans out there. But with the OSBGL League is that you've got almost half the league members of people going to tournaments are new players. So they're still developing sort of the basic skills. How do you handle top tier heroes and stuff like that? And then you've got the second half, which is kind of the veteran players that are really skilled players. And at that point, a lot of us are like, well, I'm just going to play something really wacky and have fun because this is great.
Yep.
So that's kind of the meta that we're seeing. We're not really seeing I'm not seeing the same kind of standard meta as we see in, like, say, the UK right now, or in Australia, or even in the States. It's just, it's.
Well, I'd say that's pretty consistent with the list we've seen so far, because we've had the Undying, which is never seen. Gandalf and Thranduil are seen, but not together. So, and then the first list, what was oh yeah, Riders thing. Well, that was pretty standard build, though. I would say it was pretty streamlined.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I completely get it. This is definitely like I definitely want to play with Gandalf. So very clearly that was a non-negotiable. So but that's another thing for anyone trying to replicate this. You better learn how to play a wizard, for sure.
Yes.
And it's not gonna work.
Yeah, and also, like, if you are just starting out, you will probably benefit from having Legolas on a horse, just so so you get those additional charges and kills and stuff like that.
Yeah, it'd be worth downgrading Thranduil from an elk down to a horse and just mounting up Legolas. In fact, if I were to advise anyone on this list and recognize Gandalf as a non-negotiable, then that would be the only change I would make.
Probably.
Yeah. I probably would make the same change as well.
All right, so going into the next list, hold on while I pull this thing up. So, sorry guys, I lost it. All right, here we go. So, This seems to be the fourth place. So this is the one that you mentioned lost in the top table of the final round
of the second last round, round 4.
Round. All right. Yeah. So with this one, we have Azog on White Warg. Oh, and this is Pits of Dulguldur Legion. So for anyone who doesn't know, they have 2 special rules. It's actually a fairly new Legion where one of them, you basically have the Palantir on like steroids.
Yeah.
And essentially it's a Palantir where you get priority, but also not only do you get priority, you cannot be countered. So they can't eat. I believe, isn't that right? They can't even call heroic moves.
Correct.
Yeah. So you just grab it, which is then the other one is like your whole army gains resistance to magic, which is, I guess, to represent the necromancer protecting everybody. Mm-hmm. So here we got, and is that all the rules for that Legion? Pretty sure that's it.
Yes, that's pretty. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So Azog and White Warg, that's it. But he is not allowed to be equipped with all the extra stuff. So then you have 3 captains here, one with Warg and bow, another one with Warg and bow, and then another one with a bow. So just kit it out on the captains. You got Thrain the Broken as the final hero. And then outside of that, 12 Hunter Orcs, 16 Hunter Orcs without bows. Sorry, 12 with bows, 16 without bow. 5 Gundabad Orcs with shield and spear. 8 Wild Wargs. All right. And then a banner and a warhorn. 45 models total with 12 with bow. So I'm on board with the ideas behind the list. They decided to just get away from Bolg and any Nazgul, because I believe, are the Wraiths in this list?
I think so, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure Bolg is, but
all right, let's assume they're not. So normally the typical kit. Now, keep in mind, this list is like rarely played. I've almost never seen it. And it's mostly not because it's bad. I don't think it's bad. It's basically just it's new. But this is a way I think that would be solid to play it. The captains can buy you time, be a might battery while Azog does his thing. Plus, you have plenty of Hunter Orcs to rip people up, and a lot of people know that. And I think if 5 Gundabad Orcs with spears is pretty appropriate for what you're doing. 8 Wargs. 3, 4, I would have got it. 6 max, 8. Wow. Okay. So I really would have liked to hear them explain the logic behind that, because that just sounds like you just threw away 16 points. But what do you guys think?
I know for Napo, he uses them. It's mainly as objective grabbers, but then he'll also send some with a captain to just like delay something if he has to.
Okay, so they're sacrifices.
Yeah, they're fast sacrificial lambs. Is really what they are.
I mean, well, there was some merit to that. Yeah, I've seen situations where like you can easily just block something in, take an objective, and then fortify yourself on it. So there are some good uses for them, but I still don't think I would personally use 8. I'd probably go with like 4, maybe 5,
Yeah.
5 at a stretch.
That's 8's a lot. All right, so if someone were to submit this list to us, I think the 8 Wild Wargs, unless Justin, you have a reason to disagree.
I mean, also you have
I don't
with White Warg, and 2 captains on Wargs as well. So so it's not like you're lacking speed in the list.
I would have put a captain. That 3rd captain should be on a Warg before you took a Wild Warg.
Yeah, before you took the first Wild Warg.
Like, that's insane. That 8 points is much better spent. Yeah, that would have been my main advice. Like, take away 2 of these Wargs, and then throw the captain on a Warg, and then you have what, 6 points left over?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, take the 6 points, and then, God, I don't know. Give the final. Do captains have any other options? Like, I don't know. I don't know what you can do with 6 points, but you probably reconfigure this slightly.
Yeah,
to throw it around, but.
Also, what's the banner and warhorn situation? So, does that do they go onto an orc?
Yeah, they go. It looks like they're going on a Gundabad because it's 55 points exact, which is exactly the price of just the equipment. So my assumption is that equipment is tied to one of the Gundabads we saw earlier.
So he had the banner on a Gundabad, but he had the warhorn on one of the hunter orcs, actually.
Which you have to, yeah.
Right. Oh, warhorn is 30 points. I thought it was 20.
It is 30. 30 and 25. So it's 55.
Right, yeah. Okay.
So yeah, the good and bads, yeah, they're usually brought actually for the purpose of getting a banner because I don't think Hunter Orcs can take them.
No, I
So
don't think so.
No,
that is usually, and I imagine that Orc with the banner was following around Azog. So Threaten the Broken, for anyone who doesn't know why you play him, is mainly a drop. So it allows you to project your opponent's deployment. And so I have no disagreements with Threaten the Broken. He is a cool throwaway troop. To be honest, he's also a arguably good objective grabber. I don't know. Like the fact that he can go psycho and move off the objective last minute is not great. So I'd rather use Wild Barks. But, you know, once he's on the field and he's done his whole deployment shenanigans, I don't know, throw him in combat, I guess. So I'm not sure 100% what you do with the guy.
He's pretty much just shits and giggles, really.
Yeah, exactly. You probably want him to die sooner than later. So you probably throw him in there. Now be careful with Threaten the Broken because in some objectives like Fog of War and Assassination, he becomes a liability. And so that's the one thing about Threaten the Broken that is hard to account for is those two objectives. But in a veto system that you had described, then you can just simply veto the scenarios out. And I'd rather have, you know, I don't know, I'm assuming Fog of War because I'm going to assume someone will pick Thrain. So, okay. Other than that, any suggestions on this?
Even with a veto system, like effectively, if you know which scenario you're vetoing out because of Thrain, then you're basically forcing yourself to play the worst of the other two scenarios because your opponent will go, okay, well, I know you're gonna veto this one because of Thrain.
Yeah.
So it's really up to me which scenario we play.
Yeah, that is actually one interesting counter to the veto system is that you know, if you know your opponent has to avoid one, it's pretty much on your terms.
The only downside to that being that for this particular tournament, the way the veto system worked is that it's not actually we select a pool for a round, it's we rolled 3 scenarios at random that are from all the pools. And then they select from those 3 scenarios.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I guess
in that case, right. So in that case, with like small lists, you might get one Maelstrom, one objective, one of the other ones.
Exactly.
And then you go, I don't want to play Maelstrom. So you could end up with like 3 rounds where Maelstrom is an option, but you always veto it out.
Yeah.
Right.
And
that's
again, in the tournament,
the American way of doing it.
So so that's the other way of doing the vetoes. Yeah.
There we go. And then also on top of that, so Nap was also he's been playing for a few years now, so he's not necessarily a quite newer player, sort of an intermediate novice kind of level player. But like one thing that I was actually kind of surprised is one of the rounds in the tournament where it's like the number of people playing Heirlooms of Ages Past because a bunch of newer players are like, oh, we love this scenario. Like
new players said they like it.
Yeah. I
can
direct quote from competitors knows pretty much on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that because like if you're someone who's new and you're playing someone who you know is extremely good, then in Heirlooms you might just get lucky and win because you found the objective, and in the other scenarios you'd probably get smashed. So
I'm finding those newbies are the ones who get caught up with the going around collecting them and not realizing they just gave the win to their opponent. You know, because that was the last one they didn't select is with the opponent. But I don't know. That's interesting. That's normally one of the most hated scenarios in the game. So that's interesting that new players would like it. It's funny because at Articon, we actually
everybody just boos.
Yeah, they all booed as soon as it came out. They're like, yeah,
the entire room, like 200 people booing when that scenario comes out.
No, in that particular round, out of the 16 players, so 8 tables. Out of the 8 tables, I'm pretty sure there was 3 or 4 playing Heirlooms of Ages Past.
Right.
All right, wasn't vetoed.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, so let's go to Benedict Beklinski's list. Now, this is a very strong player in Canada. I know him very well. He is playing something very traditional to himself.
This is his bread and butter right here.
Yep, he pretty much came here to win.
This is Rob's favorite list with Faramir. He loves Faramir, that guy.
So this one we have Boromir and Horse with heavy armor, shield, and the lance. So fully kitted out without the banner. 2 Knights of Minas Tirith with shield. 3 Warriors of Minas Tirith, spear, shield. 3 Warriors of Minas Tirith with a shield. 3 Rangers with spear, and 1 Warrior with a banner and shield. So pretty standard build there with no Fountain Court kind of idea. Faramir with horse, heavy armor, shield, and a lance. 2 Knights, once again. 3 Warriors with shield, 3 Warriors with shield and spear, 4 Rangers with spear. And then he's got Huron as a final drop with 1 Knight. So he's got a total of 5 Knights here. And then 3 Warriors of Minas Tirith, 3 again with shield and spear, 4 Rangers. So kind of a standard build. So basically 3, 3, and then Rangers seem to be providing some sort of I'm going to call it a flank, but to be honest, I don't know that's actually how he plays it. I'd imagine he's sticking. I don't know. I couldn't tell you if he's making the Rangers kind of be a loose squad in the back, or if he's actually putting Rangers behind the core group. I'm assuming they're loose around because it's 3 and 3. So yeah,
I've seen him do both. It depends on the scenario for him, but I've seen him do both tactics depending on what he's facing.
I mean, all of the Rangers have spears, so they can easily go in the back rank. Also, I think Huron here, he's 90, so I assume he's got a horse.
Yes, he does. Yep.
Yeah, he's got to. I saw no horse at first, and I was like, no, I can't see Benedict playing no horse. So
no, there's a horse in that.
Yeah, no, because he's 80 basic and it's 90.
So, I mean, as far as my thoughts on the list, of course, the big standout here is Faramir, but
well, actually, there's not a big standout. No banner of Minas Tirith.
That is another big standout. That is true.
Yeah.
In fact,
cause,
choosing to take the normal banner of a Warrior of Minas Tirith.
Yeah, it's like the standard build usually goes Faramir swapped into Madril, and then Boromir gets the special banner. So
what this says to me is he clearly is not intending on killing with his troops.
That is exactly it.
Yeah, no, it's just
except for the Knights,
three heroes going in, hurry combats, hopefully kill like 12 models. Hopefully that's enough.
And the troops just grind him out.
Yeah.
He very much plays it as what North of the Shire podcasts call a line breaker list. So you just waltz right up with your heroes, throw a combat from a flank, and you just demolish everything as much as you can. And your troops just kind of fill the gaps and prevent your heroes from getting surrounded.
The interesting thing, though, is that he has so many knights, and normally people can't justify the cost of the knights when the banner is not around. Being fight 3 is a huge liability on a charging knight, and Boromir fixed that as a problem, but not anymore. So I guess with the knights, they are really just a flanking force to do exactly what Justin you just mentioned, which is to keep the heroes from, like, they charge in with the heroes, maybe on heroic combat shenanigans, and just, you know, really lock in the opposing side as far as trapping and such.
That's exactly it. Like, I'm pretty sure to my knowledge of the way Ben plays, it's very rare that he'll charge a knight on its own without being in the same combat as one of his heroes.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So these slingshots him around. So, I mean, as far as Faramir, if you need a cheap, hard-hitting hero at 105 points in Gondor, I honestly can't imagine another way to do it.
I mean, he's fine.
Yeah, I mean, he does the job. Like, unless you're going to jump into fiefdoms, which is not typical for him. So I know he'll rather go into Numenor than go into fiefdoms, but
yeah, and I suppose also in your veto system, it makes sense not to play Madril because you can essentially always choose not to play Maelstrom if you don't want it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no need for that.
Actually, that's an excellent point because typically you will see Madril for that purpose. So in the typical veto.
Yeah, there's also what's the other? Recon is the other scenario where you do benefit from the +1 quite a bit. Because like it's so annoying if your warbands just don't come on for a couple of turns and then you're just so far behind.
And then so that's a big argument, I guess, not to debate between veto systems, but when you go by the pools, I believe the pool with the Maelstrom ones basically don't allow you.
Yeah, there's all 3 Maelstroms. Yeah,
exactly.
So
you just sort of pick the lesser of evils. You basically always discards. Always discard heirlooms, and then one of you picks which scenario you play.
Yep. All right. Any more comments on this one? Nope. All right.
Pretty straightforward there.
Yeah, it is. It's a Minas Tirith list. I imagine any.
That was very solid.
Not to discredit or denounce like the intelligence behind building it, but I imagine most new players would build it exactly the same or very similar, except they'd have a banner. But so this is Joseph Hamlin here. So, go ahead.
I was gonna say another one of our top OSBGL players as well.
Oh yeah, this is great. I love this.
All right, Mick, we'll go ahead and read it. What you got?
So it's the Witch King on Fell Beast with the crown 3/14/3. 6 Black Demonorians, 6 Moran Orcs with Spear and Shield, 1 Moranon with Spear and Banner, 1 Warg Rider with Shield and Throwing Spear, 1 Morgul Stalker, 2 Orc Warriors with Spears, 1 Orc Warrior with Spear and Shield. The second warband is Shadow Lord with Horse, 6 Black Demorians, 6 Moranons, Spear and Shield, 2 Stalkers, 1 Warrior with Spear. Then the third warband is Spider Queen, leading a Bat Swarm and a Fell Warg. So this is 38 models. This is kind of like a very, very, very strong hitting setup with a very solid Black Demorians backed up by Moran Orc setup, with Shadow Lords so that you're protecting yourself from bowfire. Personally, I would have thought this army would have been at least like somewhere like the first place or something like that. Like personally, I would have been playing this army so far.
This would be me. Yeah, this is the army I would bring to Articon.
This is me.
This list is fantastic on so many levels, and I mean a lot of strong magic shutdown, and then very, very hard hitting, along with another shutdown on the Bat Swarm, mobility, like strong anvil, and just enough little things like Warg Rider, Morgul Stalkers, and such thrown in for some utility.
Yeah, I actually quite like the Morgul Stalkers. So normally they're not great, but like just having 1 or 2 is useful to just hide behind a tree if you're objective holding. So that's that can be handy. One thing I would only say, 14 will on the Witch King with Fell Beast. It's probably a little low, especially at 800 points.
Yeah, it's just because he commits to combat.
Yeah, I'd probably go for like 17, 18, just because you have the Fell Beast.
Yeah. And I think that, like round 1, Joseph ended up facing Napo with the Pizza del Guldur, and Azog just rips through everything.
Whoops.
Plus he has resistant magic, which is not great.
Exactly, yeah. So that's part of the reason why this army did not end up closer to the top, I think, in this event. It's just it's
so that's kind of interesting though, because the more I think about it, actually I feel like Pizza del Guldur wouldn't stand too much of a chance, because Azog is facing 2 spellcasters and then a Bat Swarm.
And a Spider Queen.
And Joe has a Fell Beast and a Spider Queen.
Yeah,
there's a lot of shutdown capacity here. It must have been the Pizza del Guldur's army itself that caused the issue, where like they just, because if I were to pit Hunter Orcs versus this army, it'd be pretty even on.
It has to be this army, I think.
Yeah, Terror. I mean,
there's Terror with the -1. You have Strength 4, so you're killing them on 4s. You have Shadow Lord
5s. Yeah.
Yeah, you have Shadow Lord to turn off the shooting.
Yeah, this list should have destroyed the Pizza del Guldur.
So yeah, it's almost like a perfect
I can't remember the particulars. I remember passing it was definitely an intense game. I can't remember what scenario they're playing either, but I do know there was some critical dice failure involved.
Okay. I'm gonna have to talk to Joseph. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, because if it was in the hands of a player I've never heard of, then okay. But I know Joseph Hamlin is actually a top tier player. So
yeah, no, he is. He's in the top. I think he's in the top 5 of the OSBGL league standings right now. Like he definitely. Yeah, I remember chatting with him after the game, and he's like, "Man, like my dice just sucked," and like I normally don't say this.
Yeah, no, and that's another thing. Like top players never blame dice.
Yeah,
pretty rare. So
yeah, so and I've known Joe for a long time now. So whenever I hear him say critical dice failure, I'm like, okay, no, it was actually critical dice failure.
Right.
Yeah,
you know,
this army, like if you've won like the first rounds or second rounds, whichever the game he lost, like I think against the Riders of Theoden, I think this would just have shattered Riders of Theoden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm definitely I of all the lists, I'm like kind of reviewing like, okay, this list versus this one, this one. You're right. Like Riders of Theoden would have been totally destroyed by two monstrous creatures that move at these speeds.
And two magic users.
Yeah, and two magic users. Yeah, like
yeah. Plus,
I mean,
plus there's all this, there's all the terror, and that's and he's the Riders of Rohan only were Riders of Rohan. There was no bodyguards except gambling.
There was I think he had like 6 Royal Guard, but other than that, yeah, not enough to.
Yeah, no, they can't even charge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's confusing, but hey, you know what? This list is one I would bring to Articon though.
Yeah,
and there were some other ones that certainly are good, but this one's my speed. It has just so many components that work well with every scenario in the game, and against most armies in the game.
Yeah, in fact, this list reminds me more of David Farmer's Masters winning list from a few weeks ago,
which may have been an inspiration, but
which was basically the same except Sloden over Spider Creek.
Oh, oops, sorry. All right, so all right, well, unless we have, I don't think as far as improvements here, I don't have too many. I mean,
more points of will for the Witch King.
Yeah, which would probably be achieved by deleting Immortal Stalker.
Yeah.
Grab 2 more points of will, minimum 16. I don't think it's hurting the list to do that. So, all right. So then let's go into the next one here.
I love the random throwing spear on a Word Rider.
Yeah, right. That's the throwing spear you're gonna forget to throw every game. It'll never come.
But once in 50 games is gonna be crucial.
Yeah,
exactly.
All right, so we have this next one here.
This is Sam.
So is Sam a top tier player?
Yeah, he's in the. Well, he played in the Masters in 2019.
Yeah. That's Sam. Okay. Yeah, I remember who this is.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead and read his list. What does he got here?
So he's got Agmar.
Oh, yeah. No,
so this is...
Yeah, go through
it. Perfect. So we got the Witch King of Agmar. He's gone with the Witch King of Agmar on foot, just kind of the budget version, just to provide an extra caster and the Harbinger.
Extreme budget.
Yeah, extreme. It's there's nothing added to him except for I think the Fate and the Might. But the will is at its minimum. 1 Deadmar Spectre. He's got 3 Agmar Orcs with spear, 4 Agmar Orcs with bow, and 5 Agmar Orcs with shield. Then his second warband, he's got Gullivar and 7 Wild Wargs. In his third warband, he's got the Shade. Surprise, surprise. With 1 Agmar Orc Warrior with banner and shield, 5 Agmar Orc Warriors with spear, 4 Agmar Orc Warriors with 2-handed weapons, 1 Agmar Orc Warrior with shield, and then in the fourth warband, he's got a Burrow White, 1 Deadmar Spectre at 15 points, 2 Agmar Orc Warriors with spear, and 2 Agmar Orc Warriors with shield. And warband 5, we don't see it there, but it's another Burrow White.
So I'm so conflicted on this list because there's so many things I disagree with on it. Like, some of which I've already talked about in this episode.
Wild Wargs?
What? You mean the Wild Wargs?
Hold on, because
even with the Witch King, the 2-handed weapons, the forced inclusion of a Shade in this list, which I get what he was going for. He was going for. You got, Witch King is clearly just a magic user, but you've kind of nerfed him to almost fragility in this list where...
Yeah, but there's no contest, so you don't care.
Huh?
There's no contest of champions, so you don't care.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. You do not care about that. But I'd be really worried about an opposing magic user target him after... after. Well, yeah, I guess what would you target him with? I suppose.
Yeah, what sup whale? Like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't forget, you've got
Sure,
two
good
Burrow
point.
Whites to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the Burrow Whites are doing the heavy lifting as far as Magic is concerned in this list. It's the Burrow Whites day in day out, just paralyzing everything.
I mean, if anything, the Witch King just goes like and casts like a 1 or 2 dice transfix. If that gets resisted, you go for a Burrow White. So
Exactly.
he's there really just to provide the might and then the
It's just a might. Yeah, he's a leader in a might. So, which then in that case, I agree with not mounting him so he can't be like compelled into unreasonable positions. But
yeah, I think he's fine. Like I've played it in the same way before, and he's fine that way.
Oh, you've played him like this?
Yeah. Like not at 800. I played him like that at like 500 or 600. And
well,
so
then it makes sense to me.
Yeah, but
because
also,
then he's just bringing lead. He's a troop battery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But here he's not operating that capacity.
Although he's not the true battery.
Yes.
But then here he's also allowing the Gullivar to actually go out and kill things without worrying about losing leader points.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah. That's the main one of the main strategies behind there in Sam's list as well.
I mean, in every Angmar list, that's the strategy because
exactly.
I don't think I've ever seen an Angmar list without the Witch King.
Well, especially with Gullivar in there, because Gullivar is is he Valor?
He is Valor.
Yeah, he's Valor.
That sucks. Yeah, because otherwise I would have made the Shade my leader.
Or Burrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that you can because they're all minor. Well, no, Shade's Shade's Fortitude would be fine. Yeah, but a Burrow White you couldn't because they're a minor. You can't make a minor your leader.
Yeah.
I would have went for the Shade normally, but yeah, Gullivar Trumpet, and that'd be a bad day if your damn leader is Gullivar. Yeah. That is a very big confliction of duties there. Okay, so I guess as far as we 7 Wild Wargs once again. Is this a Canadian thing?
We love Wild Wargs. Okay, I don't know if it's just, but like I've run army my old Agmar list. Now this was obviously a fun list at the time. I was doing it just for shits and giggles, but I would run the Dwimmer Lake mounted, Gullivar, and then sometimes the Witch King mounted, and then just Wild Wargs. All Wild Wargs. And a couple Wild War Chieftains.
I can imagine if it was like Bearnings or something like that, because there's a lot of bears in Canada. But I suppose there's like a lot of wolves in Canada too, so everyone's into that.
We do have a lot of wolves. This is true, and coyotes and foxes and things. But yeah, no, definitely Wild Wargs. It's a staple that I see a lot in our league, especially among like in the Quebec League, and like the advice or the sayings I commonly hear is like bring them minimum in 5s or 8s.
Right.
Because you're gonna lose probably 3 to bowfire, and you still want 4 or 5 to be there to actually like grab your objectives at the end or that sort of thing. They're really just they're fast moving cannon fodder, basically.
I'm just thinking, what's worse than 5 Wild Wargs? 8 Wild Wargs.
Yeah. Oh man, so I mean, moving even beyond the Wild War, I think I get the idea here. I think 2 Barrow Whites is solid. 2 Deadmar Specters is appropriate. The Angmar works. You got a lot of spirits everywhere, so they're all causing terror all over the place. 2-handers, sure, whatever. I'm not a big fan of 2-handed weapons in this type of list, but it's only 2. It's 2 points, whatever. So otherwise, I think everything they did here. I mean, if the Witch King is actually doing the function that Mick described earlier, it's overall a fine list. The Shade,
I agree. It's fine.
Yeah. I mean, the Shade.
I'm actually surprised this list didn't perform better, because in playtesting and in other local smaller events, this list has been pretty much undefeated, apart from myself with my Thadra's Guard list, but. Yeah, Kassan's been running this for the past few months, and it's been almost completely undefeated in all of the test games he's played. So I was actually surprised it didn't quite perform as well as it has been in playtesting. But that's the way it goes.
See, this is where it's always tough to review lists that are piloted by players like Sam, because it's like you can give him like mediocre lists and he'll only pull it to the top. So, but okay, so you fought against it seems. The Shade, how'd you like fighting? Like not like fighting against it, but like how did you think it performed within the context of this list? I mean, is Gullivar hanging out around the shade to make sure that he doesn't lose combats to heroes?
Yes. So the only reason I managed to beat this particular list whenever I played it, and actually I think the version I played I can't remember if he had the Witch King in the version I played at a tournament. Like it was a couple months before the Canadian Open event. But the only reason I won is because Gullivar came in to kill Grimbold because I had Theodred's Guard, and he got through my no-fly zone kind of around Grimbold to kind of protect him. And Grimbold, despite having a two-handed weapon and being in range of the shade, won the fight and caused 2 wounds on Gullivar.
That's so random.
And then Theodred came in the next turn, and Gullivar was out of might by this point, and Theodred just came in and just killed him the next turn.
That's certainly a blind luck situation that I can. Getting -2 to your roll.
Yeah.
Okay, but so what I will say is this: the shade combined with Gullivar is a nasty combo, except for the fact that Gullivar's large base plus he's often moving around a lot means that the shade often won't cover every portion of his base.
I think that's fine though.
You think that's fine?
Yeah, because essentially, like you can keep Gullivar nearby, but then whenever you need to, you can just jump out and die to Grimbold. So I think it's okay.
All right. Well, so overall, though, I will say this: if you're gonna put a shade in the list, I think this is not a bad way to do it. Okay, having 3 spellcasters plus then also a missile you're throwing around, that's pretty good. I think it's actually probably a little more effective than just simply spamming out 200 points of orcs. So 200, my reference being here for anyone listening, is the Gullivar inclusion.
Yeah.
Because normally Shade and Gullivar are not played in the same army.
True. Yeah, the only change I would have made was to change the 7 Wild Wargs into Warg Riders. Into like 4 Warg Riders with shields.
Yeah, that is.
Actually, I'd rather have Warg Riders than Wargs. Yeah. All right. So this one, oh, wow. We have a very interesting one here. It's a treat. So we got the Watcher in the Water in this list. Then as a leader, we have Durberts with leading a bunch of Goblin Warriors. I don't actually know how many on here. In fact, I don't have numbers for anything.
I think it's
my goodness.
6 of them.
Yeah, 6. That first number is how many?
Okay, so we got 6 Goblin Warriors with gear. I'm assuming they have shield. We have 3 Goblin Prowlers. We have a Bat Swarm, a drum, a Moria Black Shield drum, which is probably going to be important to how many Black Shields they have. And then we have 3 Black Shields. So those 3 Black Shields are most likely hanging out with the drum. Then they have the Watcher in the Water. Then you have Groblog with 8 more Goblin Warriors with shields, I assume. Goblin Prowlers.
Well, shields or spears.
I think
even mostly spears.
Oh yeah, it could be shield and spear because it's 4. It's 8, so it could be 4 and 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly like that.
Or like 3 and 5, just so you can also support the Prowlers.
Yeah. And then you got a Warg Marauder, and then the Shaman, leading 5 Goblin Warriors with, assortments of spears and shields, and then another Warg Marauder. And we have finally a Black Shield Captain with 9 Goblin Warriors, shield seer assortment, and then 2 Prowlers. And there's an assumption here that there's nothing else.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's I'm pretty sure that's everything. Yeah.
So I guess initial thoughts going into this, Grolog, fine for all the war. You have a lot of goblins in this list, so it makes sense to have him in there, like helping out, making them at least useful on one side, or a little more useful. But mostly, I assume he's helping out the Prowlers, which is kind of interesting because the Warblands, the Prowlers are all split up everywhere. So, and I say the Prowlers because if I'm maybe not wrong, isn't there a way to get your Prowlers to fight 5?
Yes.
Grobog has to activate on a 4-up, and then there's a way if you
your army bonus.
What was the army bonus again?
If you outnumber your opponent, you get +1/5 value.
Yeah, I think that's how that works.
Yeah. No. If your opponent's trapped, then you get +1/5 value. Yeah. So you get +2. So Prowlers are fight 5.
Okay.
And then they get +2 to kill.
Yeah. Because in the so the prowlers probably hang around Groblog for those benefits. Warg Marauders, solid addition. I'm not mad at it. And you have 2, which is about the max I'd ever put in there just because of their absurd cost. However, he has them listed here as 30 points. Aren't they 35?
Well, Marauders used to be 35. I think they dropped to 30.
Yeah, I'm double checking there because you got me intrigued. Like, oh, well, that'd be.
Yeah.
There goes my ability to veto the checklist and make sure they're valid before the tournament starts.
Justin, you have failed as a TO.
There you go.
I just remembered. So in the last Wild Warg,
they're 30 points.
Oh, they are 30. Oh, they decreased them.
Okay, good. I'm not a useless TO.
Yeah,
we're good.
It's right. Yeah, no.
Have your job back, Justin. You're good.
I was just remembering in the previous Wild Warg list there were 7 Wild Wargs at 7 points each, but in the one before it was 8 Wild Wargs at 8 points each. So I think.
Oh, see, okay, I might still have issues then.
I'm pretty sure there's 7. Just the other person was using them for 8 because they're that good.
Yeah, they are 7 points. Yeah.
Oh, so they just added an extra point. They were like, hell,
I think so. Yeah.
There we go.
I'm going to overpay for these guys. That's how good it is. Well, maybe, did they mean Fellwargs?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Oh, yes, they're Fellwargs.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So if that's the case that they were Fellwargs, then I give them slightly more credit. Their Fell sight ability is actually interesting, but I still wouldn't bring 8 of them.
It's quite good, actually, yeah. But
no, they are the Fellwargs. I just remember because of the models and the because Napo's one that had them at 8 points, but he's predominantly a French player trying to write in English, so that's probably where that happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then this list is obviously the most interesting aspect is going to be the Watcher, which is going to make or break this list depending on how you use it. I mean, for those who don't know, typically the way this is often played, and I can't say that this player played it this way, but typically is that you throw the army in, wait until the armies have actually collided, do your thing, and then the Watcher shows up kind of in the middle and disrupts a whole lot of stuff. I'm not saying it's the best way to play it. That's just normally how I see it played.
That's exactly how he played it.
Okay. Then, so with the Bat Swarm, normally that's there to protect the Watcher. So hero jumps in, Bat Swarm jumps in after it. Or either that or cause an assassination. So you could have the Watcher in your back lines, have the Watcher pull in a hero. It pulls into the Watcher's combat. Then the Bat jumps into that combat. And now you have a single 1-on-1 combat, 1-on-2.
So you probably just pulling into combat with the Bat.
Oh, yeah, you could also pull it into that. Yeah, so the Bat doesn't even have to move.
Yeah, because it's a shooting attack in the shoot place, right?
Yep.
So you have to set yourself up correctly.
And I imagine anyone who's bringing the Watcher knows that trick, especially if they have a Bat Swarm in their list. If they don't have a Bat Swarm in their list, that's what tells me, like, okay, you just never tried that.
Yeah. He's done that trick before. It's he. So
he definitely knows that. It seems like
he's definitely one of the more. He's among our more skilled kind of veteran players. So he knows most of the tricks.
Honestly, I have no complaints about this list.
I think it's fine.
I think this is a solid way to build a Memorial list. I think that everything's appropriately amounted here as far as how many he has of each thing of a utility troop. I think for the drum team, 3 Black Shields supporting it is absolutely more than enough. I'm not mad at anything here. Any thoughts from you, Justin or Mick?
No, I think it's perfectly fine. It's basically 600 points plus the Watcher.
Exactly, it's the same. It's pretty much a solid Moria list. I don't have any complaints about it either.
All right. Then I'll move on to the next one. That is kind of like, well, it's funny whenever we get a list review and all of us are like, yeah, this is a good list. Like, there's nothing to change. Like, that's it. Like, just increase your skills at that point. It's really like the next thing.
Mm-hmm. So. Roll better too. Like,
yeah, just start rolling.
Yeah.
So just for time, we'll probably either move forward this really fast or make this our last list. We'll see. So this one, Steve Stokes, actually, he's been around the community for a while now at this point in Canada. So
yep.
33 models, 11 bows is a Galadrim mixed with Iron Hills. That was interesting. So
and Erebor reclaimed on the next picture. He's got I think Thorin in there.
Oh, okay. I'll pull up the next picture in a second then. Yeah. So we got Galadriel. He's got a knight, 6 warriors with shields. He's got spears, 2 spears behind him, and then he's got a banner. So basically 8 Galadrim warriors, well 9 technically, 1 with a banner. Then he's got 2 Galadrim court guard with them, and then a wood elf warrior with elf and a wood elf spear. He's got 5 of them. Wow. Okay. So Iron Hills, he's got Dane on a war boar, I assume the pig. Iron Hills goat rider. I assume that meant to be in the line below. And then he's got an Iron Hills dwarf with a shield. He's got 1 with a 3 with a spear, and he's got 3 with a crossbow. And so that's a total of 8 dwarves, goat rider. And then the Thorin warband.
Wait, is Thorin in Erebor Reclaimed?
Or it might not have been Thorin, but I know he had an Erebor Reclaimed.
It's Dwalin. It's not
Dwalin.
Thorin.
There we go. Okay, I got
Dwalin.
my heroes mixed up.
So, and he's got 5 dwarves there, 2 with crossbows.
I'm not sure this is it Leo? Oh yeah,
it's 3-way. It's 3-way Green Alliance.
Yeah, because it's 3 crossbows for Iron Hills, but then I was only seeing 4 other guys. But yeah, there's that's fine.
Yeah.
This is green Galadrim.
Might be yellow.
I think it's a yellow alliance where he just simply has a hero of valor everywhere.
Oh, that could double check.
He's got 2 legends and a valor, so I think it's a yellow.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is yellow. Yep. Yeah.
So, okay, this is interesting.
I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah, I'm actually not mad at the way this is all constructed.
Yeah,
I think the dwarves are actually. It's weird because he gave him spears, so I could either assume 1 of 2 things. Either 1, he gave him spears for a Maelstrom mission, so that way they could be independent of the elves, or 2, they have no intent to actually be in front of the elves. Because normally that's how it's often done, is you have elves with spears behind, but the Galadrim only have 2 spears, which means he definitely intended the elves to be in the front ranks. So the dwarves are operating completely independently of elves. It seems like he has wood elf warriors.
Wood elf warriors have spears.
Oh, yeah, they do. So he's probably sticking the wood elf warriors behind the dwarves.
Yeah, that's what he was doing.
Yeah,
That's what
like
the
Iron Hill dwarves can just it's only 5 points he's spending on the spears, so he can be front rank or back rank depending what happens.
Then now the wood elf warriors make more sense. At first it was a little bit bizarre, but now he's getting cheap elven bowfire and spears at as much of a budget as he can.
Exactly.
And they're a utility tree.
Still like 11 points per model, no?
Are they? Galadrim are the same price then.
Yeah, because these guys have an elven cloak that nobody needs ever for anything.
Yeah, now with the new rules. Then my assumption is that, man, I could not tell you why he would want the Wood Elf Warriors actually beyond that. I mean, maybe it's a utility troop that he can occasionally throw out there and just put it on an objective and have an elven cloak take effect. But
actually, Wood Elf Warriors get the shielding ability with their spear.
They do.
They do.
So you can just throw them into some fights just against 2 enemies with a bounty nearby. You're still probably winning fights whilst you're using your stronger troops to kill something else.
I'll give that.
Yeah, there's some uses there.
It's not a horrible use of Wood Elf Warriors. I'll say that. It's okay. It's like, all right, that works. I'm not upset at what you're doing.
And like it's a sort of bow contingent where you can just have them there on their own, and like they're not just gonna collapse because they can all shield.
Okay.
Exactly.
But other than that, I mean, Galadriel's bringing the magic support on, pretty much anyone that Dane and Dwalin are fighting. I mean, Dane and Dwalin speak for themselves. They do their thing. Goat Rider, I'm not mad at. 1 Goat Rider, I think is appropriate. Multiple crossbows. He's actually doing pretty good in the shooting war. He's got, 5 crossbows and 5 elf bows? It's not bad considering you have Blinding Blade.
Yeah, I think it's a solid list.
And the thing is, you can even put, I think there was one, you can even put the Wood Elf Warriors behind the Iron Hills crossbows, and you've basically got yourself a mini pincushion that doesn't have to go anywhere.
I'd imagine the Wood Elf Warriors would prefer to be behind some sort of terrain, but yes, you could just throw them on, assuming that they're not firing back with anything significant. Because, if I saw that, I'd immediately start firing Wood Elves. Like,
for sure,
just to reduce their shooting capacity. Now, this is assuming you're in a blinding light war of 2 blinding lights, but but yeah, I mean, ultimately, yeah, the crossbows are adding the nice punch to that, and yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure really how it improved the list. The guards that go out in court too makes sense, allowing you to boost any combat to fight 6 wherever a hero is lurking, an enemy hero. Banners in the list. I actually like Dwalin better than Thorin in a lot of cases, so I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't think of any.
Yeah,
it's a solid list.
All right, well then, just for the sake of time, I guess we'll just really run through this last list, and unless it's super unique. Oh, it is super unique. I don't know. All right. Let's run through this one. So this is a Mahad King on a camel, fully kitted. Another one on a camel, fully kitted. And then we have a Witch King, which looks like Crown of Morgul, 2 extra might. I can't read it. I'm assuming it's a pretty kitted out Witch King.
Yeah, it's almost a fully kitted out Witch King. Yeah.
On Felbeast. So leading Black Numenorians, has Morgul Knights. I can't see how many, but it looks like 4.
I think he had 4 Morgul Knights and then 3 Black Numenorians. Yeah.
Suladan, Serpent Lord, leading Raiders, which once again I cannot tell how many.
It's a full warband, I think.
That's
Raiders? Kind of the bulk of his 4th. Yeah, the Raiders and.
So you had 10 Raiders.
There's warriors too. So it's 18 warriors in total.
No, I mean, like, he's got 10 cavalry models.
I'm pretty sure it was 10 cav and the rest were on foot. Right. The other 8 were on foot.
Right.
Huh.
It was a predominantly cavalry force.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then
I ended up I know because I've had this I faced that same list at Council of the Wise top table last round. It was me against Preston with my Riders of Aomer against that pretty much exact list, and it's predominantly cavalry.
There's no other picture, so this is what it is. Yeah, it is a 10 rider, Serpent Riders, then Raiders, and he's got camels, Witch King on Felbeast. Yeah, Sullivan. Okay, so if you're going to make a cavalry army in Harad, Mordor, this type of mix, I'd say this is not a bad attempt. I think you're really losing a lot of points with your Witch King. I get why you chose it with the beast and totally kitted out, but this list tells me it is really tiny. What do we
it's
got?
Quite small,
20 something models, 25 possibly. So okay, that's normally a bad problem in cavalry lists, especially where you seem to be losing the shooting war in every capacity. Most of your cav do not shoot, so you are definitely going in there headlong. And Suladan has March, so I'd grant that. I mean, the 2 Mahud Kings, I'm trying to like piece this together. The Mahud Kings are, I think, a good at. I think the only one I'm a little bit on the fence about is maybe the Witch King in this build, but I mean, who can be mad at a heavy magic user that also acts as a combat beast? That's tough. This I mean, terrain dependent for sure. I don't trying to think of where I would say a weakness here would be. Other than the low model count with really fragile horsemen.
Well, the main weakness is that it's all cavalry, which isn't Rohan or Rivendell Knights.
And so Rivendell Knights and Rohan are higher armor than these. They're going to be theoretically higher, fight? They can go to fight 5 on a basic list with the Royal Guard and such, whereas this one doesn't. You have Serpent Riders for sure. You have Morgul Knights, so you're 5-4 base. Then you have the shooting, of course. Okay, so you have no kiting ability. That's the other issue. Like Rohan and Rivendell Knights both have an ability to whittle down the opponent and force combat. See, that's the big thing. Yeah. You cannot force engagements where you want it to be. You are coming to your opponent.
Yeah, you basically have to go and probably the worst place.
Yeah. So you're
basically like the Preston pretty much is forced in a scenario where he has to rush in with his cavalry and basically make full use of his lances. And if his lances work out, great. If not, that army falls apart. Yeah.
You lose any combats, you're dead.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I'd say the list is risky. It's definitely a fun list. I mean, I think, so the reason camels work, whereas I would say, like, so I play an all camel list, an all evil camel list that works probably a little better than this one, mostly because of the impact it allows me to whittle down troops before the combat even begins. So the fact that my opponent does not even get to roll dice in an attempt to kill me allows it to succeed, but I still wouldn't rate it as a highly competitive list. Terrain screws you up. I have to fight on my opponent's terms. So, when they go into terrain, sure, I got blowguns, but I mean, good luck getting people to get out of their terrain with that. So, you got the Witch King. Magic would be helpful here, but I imagine, you may not do enough to force your opponent to fight out of the woods. So
I almost wonder if the Shadow Lord would be a better option just to keep your raiders a bit safer from any shooting type stuff. And then you'd give you a few more points to maybe add in some more archer, just like some more Haradrim raiders with bow or something.
I could agree with that, except the Shadow Lord's radius of 6 inches, even on a Fell Beast size base, would not encompass the amount of radius. I don't know. I'd have to map that out and actually see it on the field, but you have a better eye for it since you've seen the army. So if you can imagine the Shadow Lord encompassing it, then I would say, I would say that probably would be a slightly better.
I'd say it encompass enough that he wouldn't get broken by shooting.
Yeah. I think one full shooting army, Rangers of Thillion, well, you probably won't see Dale points, but any really solid shooting army is going to really mess this army up. Yeah, I mean, luckily you got the March.
What would really make this cool? If you were to change the Witch King, so there's 289 points in Warband, right? That's pretty much the same as a Shadow Lord on horse and a Mortar War Catapult.
That would be cool.
Because this way you're getting your protection from bows from a Shadow Lord, but at the same time you're getting Catapult, which not only usually tends to win against shooting, it also spreads your opponent's army, and so then your troops have an easier way of picking everything off.
Keep in mind, he would lose 7 warriors and transform it into 3 crewmen, but
and a troll.
Oh, and a troll. You're right. It is a troll.
If all else fails,
theoretically never around combats, though.
Well, if all else fails, you can just get the troll to walk over with a catapult and then fight.
I mean, I like it. I mean, overall, the idea of the catapult's interesting. I would say, you'll still have the Shadow Lord, which is good, but you do lose a lot of troops. So you'd have to play with this. Whoever was Preston, making this list, but that is the general critique, and I can see why this list would not have performed as well given the amount of crippling weaknesses it would have. So, any final thoughts, Justin, before I unshare?
Just I guess the same thing as with this one. I'm actually, like I said, Preston's been doing really well in other events with the same list. So again, I'm actually, as much as I do think there's some tweaking to do in the list to really get it to its full potential, I'm also surprised that it didn't perform better as well, because Preston's a really good player also.
And I assume every player at this event, because I'm looking at this list of players, and to send some of the players that I'm looking at here down the ranks, you got to be good. This seems like it was an open where it was full of top quality players, and it was definitely like, you did not get to the top spot by beating an easy opponent necessarily, or at least not consistently. So, but yeah, so there we go. Canadian Open. And then we'll look forward to seing, who won? I forgot.
Antoine.
There you go. Only player, I felt like I didn't know. So look forward to seeing him with the Masters. So, all right. Well, then, so that'll pretty much be it for this episode. For anyone who wants us to review your list, go ahead and send it to us on YouTube, and we will review it in the next episode. With all that being said, we'll look forward to talking to you all very soon.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us.